What happened? Oh yeah, cookies. Secure. Hi, everybody. So in case you don't know, I'm Sean Kutzko, KX9X. That's Norm Fusaro at W3IZ.
Hey, guys. Thanks for coming out today. Thanks for staying.
Thank you. As everybody here knows, National Parks on the Air was obviously one of the biggest events in all of amateur radio, and it all happened because of you going out and going to these sites that we created the event for, and for the chasers who stayed home and worked, some of us, with those piddly little 5-watt signals that we had with wire antennas. So I just wanted to really say thank you, and that was the main reason why Norm and I wanted to do this forum, was just to say thank you. So, so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to give you about a minute's worth of statistics. Some of you already know this stuff because you're data obsessed like I am. But really, we're just going to throw out a few questions, and I want to hear from you what your stories were, some of your biggest successes, some of the things that you learned. Give us some feedback. What are some things that we can do better with for the next event? And yes, there will be another event. We can't talk about it just yet, but there is going to be another event, so you're going to have to wait patiently while we get all of the situation worked out a little bit, but it's coming. So, let's give you a little statistics here. So, before the event started, I would have been happy with about 400,000 or 500,000 contacts in an entire year for all of this. Boy, did you guys prove me wrong. 1,108,960 QSOs uploaded. That's you. That's you. 21,344 activations. 460 out of the 489 units were activated. Some only once or twice under some incredibly difficult operating circumstances. And a couple of you who put some of those units on the air, especially folks like Pete Kobach, K0BAK, going into densely populated urban areas and pulling off an activation like that. Pete, stand up, man. You deserve a round for that.
I want to acknowledge Peter also, because when this thing first came out, he sent emails that it was impossible, we shouldn't have this, we should operate from there. And we said, no, man, that's for you guys to figure out how to do it. Your ingenuity, the stupor station, those things, man, that was the stuff, man. That was the stuff that made this thing successful. Yep. And if you notice, man, people just learned from everybody else by what you did. They may not duplicate it, but they picked up some ideas and stuff. So fantastic, great ingenuity. Yep. Thank you.
So, let's see, what else have we got here? 1,492 individual activators went out and put on an operation. We've got over 17,000 unique calls in the leaderboard. So that's a lot of chasers that are getting on and pursuing this as well. Over 1 million contacts. You know, that's something that we should all be proud of. That was a big deal.
And you know what? Wait a minute. You just mentioned the chasers. When the certificate machine was turned on, one of the first certificates that came out in the first batch of 30 was from China.
When we were creating this event and working out the logistics for it, we didn't think that there would be as much demand for sideband as it turned out that there would be. We thought that since this was an event focused on portable operating, that CW would have reigned supreme. Boy, were we wrong. So I think 84% of all QSOs made for National Parks on the Air were sideband. 13% were CW, and just 1 or 2% were the digital modes. I only worked 4 stations on PSK or RIDI throughout the entire year. Now, granted, one of them was the Dry Tortugas National Park, and that was my only QSO with that national park, so I'm really grateful for that. You know, I think in looking at the way that the Centennial QSO Party was run in 2014, we were trying to that was an event that was completely wide open. You could, you know, run any band, any mode, and we were trying to rope things in a little bit to make it a little bit more manageable. And I think we pushed it back just a little too far. I think that if we had opened up the event so that you could work each unit once per mode, that it would have been a little bit more enjoyable, and you would have seen more CW and digital activity. So that's a lesson that we learned. You know, we got that one wrong, but we'll incorporate that into future events that we have. So what I would like to do at this point is just ask some questions and see if you all had any comments or great stories that you could tell us. So I'm going to take this microphone that Norm's holding here, and I'm going to be running up and down all over the place to make sure that everybody can hear this, and also so that we get it on the video as well. So I'm going to take this microphone and be down there in just a second, so bear with me. What is this? What is that? Okay, we got a hand up right over here. Let's see what we can do. Howdy.
Howdy. Howdy. I was wondering, do you have any statistics on how many of the activators might have been club calls as opposed to individuals?
That is a good question. I do not have solid numbers on that. Is that something that we could produce relatively easily, or no? Sorry, I'm a little taller than Norm is.
You're asking club call signs specifically, or clubs? Because they could operate. It's like field day. Some clubs have a call sign, and others just use a call for that time.
Yeah, no. Club call.
No,
Club call signs. It'd probably be easier to track.
only if we had a list of call signs to extract. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hang on. Let's keep going. What about, yeah, do we have the ability to get info on one-by-ones?
We could. I'm sure we could pull that out.
Okay.
Yeah. Listen, I talked about this at the table. You know, we're trying to develop another event going forward. So, you know, trying to get IT to do some data mining on something that's already passed, you know, it takes resources. And, you know, these guys are already working. In fact, when we proposed this national parks to the board, we said, remember, your pet project is going to get pushed down the list because this is a priority now. And they all voted okay. So now all these projects that were in line to get done are back on the table for IT. So, you know, trying to get them to do some data mining is going to be a little difficult unless they feel like staying after school.
So one of the things that was exciting, of course, for all of this was your very first activation. Who here did not operate portable until they tried National Parks on the Air? You didn't do that? Okay. Let's hear from. We got Laura right here, WZ8C, and Jack, WAKEC. So okay, so you found out about National Parks on the Air, and then you decided to try it. So tell us about your first operating experience.
Oh, that's an interesting story. I actually didn't really operate portable until I got, aside from field day, I'll say that, aside from field day. But I actually didn't even have the ability to. I didn't have a rig, I didn't have an antenna. So we go to Dayton last year, my father picks up a buddy pole, and it was just over at that point. We were going portable at that point. Picked up a buddy pole. I had a 706 Mark IIG I took out in the field, battery, and my very first activation was the River Racing down in Monroe, Michigan, and that was my very first activation. Did it with a buddy pole. We were not allowed to attach any antennas to trees, so that's why the buddy pole was so essential, and that was my very first portable activation. I've been a ham for 19 years, and I have never been as active in amateur radio as I was in 2016. at all. And that's because of you guys and your hard work and getting all of us on for that 1 year. The only thing that I can say for a suggestion for whatever is the next, I mean, I'm sure you'll spill the beans before the end of the hour, but I mean, we'll work on it. But Emily, get those cookies out. Let's go. The only other thing I would say that would make my life a little bit easier was I had 406 confirmed parks as a chaser, and scrolling through all of those, trying to find, it would be so helpful if on whatever you sign in on the website or whatever, if it was marked in a different color or where it said confirmed next to it, just so it would be easier to understand when you're like, oh, okay, I'm looking up the designator on this particular park, never mind, it's confirmed, I have that one, I'm gonna let people who need it get it, because there were those rare entities that people were fighting over, and I would purposely stay out of the way for people who needed it because I didn't need it. But it's for quickness sake, it would be nice that when you look up the designator, oh, never mind, I have it, you know, confirmed. But other than that, this was an amazing program. I'm so happy I got to meet everyone. I'm so happy everyone came out today. So thank you so much for making me an active ham again.
I actually met Laura at the end of October. I wasn't a ham, and we went out the very first week of November and did a mobile operation, throwing wire up in a tree at the North Country Trail, and that was so much fun that by December I had my general, so I could be part of the parks.
That's great. Wow. Okay. So let's just open it up for a minute. Who has a question or a comment that they
I
want to
got
throw?
one for you.
Okay.
I got one for you, because I was going to mention it. You upgraded your license during the course of the year. I know Emily upgraded. How many people upgraded their license class during the course of National Parks on the Air? Look at that. Look at that. That's great. That's great.
Other than, you became a life member? Right on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jack, you said you didn't even have a license when National Parks on the Air started? You had your tech? Is there anybody here in attendance who did not have an amateur radio license at the beginning of 2016? Right on. Great. Sharon, right on. That's excellent. Okay. So I'd like to open this up to Steve. Okay. Steve, AG2AA. Tell us a good story.
Once upon a time. So we're one of the groups that worked as a club. I didn't do any activations myself, and I didn't do any chasing. But our club, W2SO, Lancaster, New York, Buffalo, has one historic site within 300 and some odd miles of it, and it's downtown. So it's an old mansion in the downtown section of the city where Teddy Roosevelt got inaugurated after President McKinley got shot in Buffalo in 19 whatever. It's a challenge because they have just enough grass and 2 trees, and they let us use both of them. So we set up field day style. We have an experienced club, we have an experienced field day club, we have experienced contesters. So we set up like it was field day. We ran 100 watts. We ran 3 stations in some cases, 1 CW, 1 sideband, 1 digital. And the CW ops, I mean, they would have 2-3 hour runs where it was call after call after call, sideband, call after call after call. But just like field day, we had experienced operators start the runs with an inexperienced operator logging for them, and then we'd work that inexperienced operator into the operating position so they could get some experience with the pileups, they could have the fun, they could have that thrill of that chase. So I appreciate all of you as one of the activators at a fairly rare site, because I think we're the only ones that activated it, that we had some really awesome runs, and it was a ball. And from that end of it, from an experienced club that does field day, that was way more fun than field day. The one day the weather was miserable, they actually let us operate inside the mansion, so that was really kind of nice. The other thing we found out, funny story, is if you put the 40-meter dipole too close to the one wall, it crashes their Wi-Fi. They never put it together. Because one of the staff members came out and, you know, just in casual conversation, yeah, our Wi-Fi's down, we can't figure it out. We're like, we're going to move that dipole. So it was fun. We enjoyed it, and thanks all for calling into us. I hope everybody, and I know I still owe you a QSL card, but we'll sort that out. But I think everybody should have their confirmations by now. We had some logging problems. I think we straightened it out. So thanks, guys.
Does anybody have a question? Ha! Stay tuned.
If you were going to do a program next year,
It would involve amateur radio.
hypothetically speaking,
Yes. Hi. Let's get you the mic here.
Will sports emissions come up with a song with national parks?
I hinted in one last year during the cover of the NCJ. I talked about national parks on the air last year. Yeah, it was just a quick little cameo insert. But that's a good point. I'll see if I can put pen to paper and come up with a song for that. So, here we got a gentleman back here. One moment. Yes, sir.
No, I was just curious. They talk about 1.1 million QSOs for the year. When was the actual first QSO? I mean, how many operating days? Was it the full 365 that somebody do on the 1st of January? Or how many actually operating days?
Oh, the first QSO was 0001, right?
Yeah, I worked somebody in Hot Springs National Park half an hour after the thing started on January 1st.
And which is another thing we didn't anticipate. Sean and I thought this thing was going to kind of gradually move up because of the weather, winter, outdoor activity, and we thought it would just kind of like ramp up as March, April, May would go. And man, right out of the gate, I mean, it was New Year's Eve East Coast time when this thing kicked off at UTC, right? And we were and him and I are texting each other as we're just tuning the bands, and we're going, dude, this is outrageous. We can't believe it. All these guys out there in parkas, at Lakeside, operating, freezing. It was just wild.
I went out the morning of January 1st. I thought I would be one of the first guys to go on the air for this thing. No.
Yeah.
We got, I'm sorry. Yes, one more. NO2C, coming at you.
Okay. I had the privilege with, with Mike of operating the White House. And I think Mike should tell that story. Excuse me. Hay fever. No. Mike tells it so much better. My wife actually got her general because of this project. So, but with the hay fever, we'll be here half a day.
The Reader's Digest version.
The Reader's Digest version was, he did all the work. KC2SYF went through a tremendous amount of work. He had to deal with the FBI. He had to deal with the Secret Service. He had to deal with the parks. He had to deal with everything. It was just an amazing amount of work, and I'm taking no credit. They let me operate for a while and log, and my wife operated, but he did everything to make this happen. We went down there. Just to give you one little thing I have to tell you, we were allowed to bring 2 generators. Why 2? Because you couldn't bring a gas can. Okay? No gas can. And Mike got through all the paperwork. He dealt with the Secret Service, who were great, by the way. They came over. They warned us when we had to hold the tent, when Obama was going to fly over the top. And we did. They came over, and I said to the guy from the Secret Service, when are you coming? And he said, no. He said, I'm not telling you that, but I'll tell you it's going to happen today. But my favorite story, and since you let me do this, you knew I was going to do this. A net came on and said, you guys have to move. We're having a net. And I said, I do a lot of nets. We don't have to move. The guy said, you have to move. So I turned to Mike. I said, they want us to move. We've been on 3 hours. And I got to say the following: no, we are not moving. I'll take all 2s, and this is KC2SYF. So he got blamed. He got blamed for the whole thing. I love telling that story. But it was a tremendous amount of work. If you haven't seen the video, just go on YouTube and look up DZ10. And Mike also put the video. Actually, he did everything. I just got to go down there. And there were 9 of us. And we operated. We did 1,200 Qs. We had a little problem with noise right after Obama left, by the way. And but it was a lot of fun. And my wife became a general. She's studying for her extra because now she's chasing DX. And I promised her I'd tell her what the secret thing was, Sean.
It's a secret.
Ah, okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
So that raises a good point. You know, the operation from DZ-10 on the White House, there's a video of it on YouTube. There's a lot of video of National Parks on the Air operations on YouTube. How many of you posted a video to YouTube of your operation? I mean, wow, just a handful. Okay. Well, if you ever want to relive last year, just go on YouTube and type in National Parks on the Air, and you'll be amazed at the amount of stuff that you find out there. Jack, NY8D, go ahead.
Yeah, I live in Lowell, Michigan, which happens to be where the headquarters for the National Park Service for the North Country Trail is, and right next door is the North Country Trail Association, which I've been a member of for over 20 years. When the first list came out as activations, that was not on it. And I went down and I met Mark Weaver, the National Park Service.
Oh, it's your fault.
Yeah. Well, and I said, what's with this? Well, it turns out he already was on the phone to Sean trying to find out what's with this. And then I guess Mark made some phone calls or contacted somebody in Washington. I don't know who he knows in Washington, but that and other trails got onto the list. So, and we had one advantage. Michigan, going on a trail in Michigan in the middle of winter isn't the best time, but just in the north end of Lowell is a Boy Scout cabin that the trail goes right next to it, and we got use of the cabin with heat and electricity and everything, so that was nice.
Pretty good.
Now, you know, with that North Country Trail.
I was about to ask if you would tell the story of how all of this went down.
So Mark may have had some connections, but his last words to us were, I really don't have faith in my boys down in Washington to get this done by the first of the year. And we just kind of blah. So we leave for, I go down to Philadelphia for Christmas vacation with my family, and about Christmas Eve was it was December 23rd was the last
23rd.
business day, right? And somebody must have, just before they left the office, pushed that send button, and they added all the trails to the list. Sean's in Connecticut, I'm in Philadelphia, and we are doing a mad scramble to update the tables, including the twofers, the threefers, the fourfers, the all that stuff, while we're getting ready to launch this thing in only less than a week. And we did, and of course working with IT, and of course if you are in IT business, anytime you change anything, you have to test everything from beginning to end. And we were, change this, add this, do that, things that were changing, and then all these trail names and Washington Rochambeau and this and that. So we're like, we got to abbreviate this stuff. And then we got into a thing with the IT guys about spellings and stuff. It was crazy, but we pulled it off, man. We pulled it off by December 31st.
That was a Christmas that I don't think a whole lot of people in IT at ARRL will forget anytime soon.
Yeah.
By the way, Mark Weaver got his license. Mark Weaver, the National Park Service, he got his license back in June.
Yeah, he did.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the trails, the addition of the trails was one of the major capstones of the entire event. More operating took place from the trails, especially the westward migration trails from the 1850s, 1860s. I think it was over 16% of all NPOTA QSOs were made from trails and river units. And North Country Trail was right at the top. So I'd say mission accomplished. So. Okay, we had a whole bunch of, we've been doing a lot of talking about activators, but I wanted to talk about chasers for a little bit. We weren't certain about what kind of activity we were going to have right out of the gate in January, and of course Larry, K5RK, blew all of that right out of the water by working his first 100 units in the first 10 days. So I guess that says a lot about the activator activity during the first 10 days. But who here has a perspective of trying to work some of these portable folks from a chaser's standpoint? Do we have anybody here who is exclusively a chaser? Yeah? Okay, so talk to us about what it was like on the chasing end of this stuff.
The chasing was neat as far as trying to pull all the signals out, like you said, 5 watts or less or whatever, but it was nice. And from the time it started until the end, I stayed in top 10 in North Carolina. I also wound up at 406 also. And what I liked about it was the fact that it was a 7-day event. You didn't have to try to chase just Saturday and Sunday. And so I love that on it. Yep.
That is a lesson we pulled from Centennial, and it's a lesson going forward that what we found out is people's operating needs to fit their schedule. People don't need more stuff to do on a weekend. They need more weekend. And we're going to give you more weekend.
Anybody else have a question? Open forum. Yes, sir.
Well,
Give you the mic here. Ray, KC3RW.
yeah. So the question is, Norm, did we ever miss one day? Was it solid all 365, or did we miss one day?
No, not at all.
Okay.
There was activity every single day. Sean, I think the fellow in the red shirt had a question.
Sorry. Who? I'm sorry, I'm blind. Right, okay, one moment. Oh, okay. AD0OZ, Blake.
I want to hear from the people here about what was the most difficult activation that you performed.
Okay, let's see. I'll turn this one over to Emily to start. Emily, KB3VVE, the Cookie Queen.
I would say the most difficult was Statue of Liberty, and I had it easy because Peter did it before me. But it was emails, it was phone calls, it was faxes, it was waiting for people to get back from vacation, paperwork, and I'm sure they did a background check on me. I got off work at 11 o'clock at night after working 36 hours, I think. I left my house around midnight. I went with a friend because Keith was working. We drove 4 hours to New York City, set up in 35-degree weather, and ran the activation for 2 hours. I drove home and went back into work, I think, at midnight. That was the most difficult. The easiest were the trails, but the difficult, and like I said, Peter did a lot of groundwork, finding who to talk to, and then winning them over was the biggest thing. And because a lot of them didn't have any clue what this was. And the best I found was pitching it to them that we were an asset for them, because we brought a lot of social media attention to them. And if we what I found worked that caught their attention was pitching it to them that they were going to be the star in the whole thing.
That was the plan. You know, I spent months on the phone with the National Park Service Centennial folks in Washington, and had a couple of conference calls with Alexa Vietz, the Centennial coordinator for the entire thing. And unless we wanted to jump on board and be a partner with them, an official NPS Centennial partner, which would have cost a few $1 million.
Right, that means big money.
Yeah, big. You know, we would have been competing with like Budweiser and Coleman Camping and American Express. Sorry, we can't do that. So they weren't interested in officially partnering with ARRL, but they said essentially, we won't get in your way. Go have fun, which is why I tried as much as I possibly could to create, the information pamphlet and the page on the website that you could direct NPS folks to in order to get the word out. Really, every single participant in National Parks on the Air became a brand ambassador for amateur radio as a result of that. So I only had a few incidents all year long that I needed to help straighten out with and communicate with park officials on the local level to straighten out some sort of problem. So by and large, everybody who did an activation as a brand ambassador for the hobby did a really, really good job. And there were a lot of doors that were open as a result of all of your efforts. So thank you for that. Go ahead.
In the National Park visitation this year.
Well,
I'm curious if there was any acknowledgement or if we can stick statistics to the fact that maybe this group of folks had an influence.
Well, I think we did have some influence, but you need to realize, amateur. There are only let me get this right. There are only about 740,000 licensed amateur radio operators in the United States, and the National Park Service last year broke record attendance with about 310 million visitors. So, did we have some influence on that? I would say a little bit, but not anything that would be really measurable. So.
Yeah, I just want to give you guys something that I did that was pretty cool. We travel a lot. As you can see, we're here doing this convention, and when I traveled, I did some activations, like out in Lewis and Clark, out in Nevada. It was pretty cool. Sean and I did the activation. We were down in Orlando, It was pretty neat.
The one cold day in February.
Yeah, oh yeah, really. We're in Florida wearing parkas and ski caps, you know. But what really was nice too was when John Meyer really took the bull by the horns and did the Wright brothers shop down here in Dayton last year, and you know he agreed to do that. He basically gave up his Hamvention.
John Myers deserves a round of applause for his efforts here last year. He busted his butt.
Yeah, because we foresaw a lot of activators converging on there, so we figured we'll set up the station, and you can come in and activate it and have fun with it. And John really did a lot of coordination, and they were really welcoming at that museum. So,
K2EZ.
Yeah. On the subject of most difficult activations, and it wasn't technically difficult, wasn't difficult getting in, but connected with Dayton last year, and I did mention this in the forum last year, was doing Flight 93, I'm getting choked up already. Going into that park, I just broke down emotionally. And going in and hearing some of the recordings of those people on the plane, it was a very difficult activation from that personal emotional standpoint. So
That was why we had some units that were listed on the list as being extremely sensitive for reasons just like that.
Oklahoma. Oklahoma.
Yeah, the Oklahoma City memorial site. That was another one that we needed to pay special attention to. Manzanar, the Japanese detention center during World War II, that was another one. So thank you very much for respecting the cultural significance and sensitivity for some of these units. And I think because of our awareness of all of that, we were still able to put some of these extremely sensitive and important units for the United States on the air. So thank you for that. Any other question? Oh, got to give the mic to Pete.
Well, it's a question for you, Sean. Since you're the media guy, it was a great operating event, but for me, the most special part of it is developing friends from the Facebook group. That was the best part of it for me, and I'm wondering, has anything like that ever happened before, where you develop virtual friendships online, and it's just so nice to meet people afterward? And do you think that's a pattern that can be reproduced get that synergy between ham operating and social media to get personal connections?
Well, there's no question in my mind that the Facebook group is one of the things that helped make this an event part a community now. You know, how many people weren't even using Facebook before this and then got involved with it because of the part? See, you know, I knew that we needed to have a social media aspect to the event. I did not anticipate over 5,000 people jumping on board and getting to know a lot of the participants in the group on a first-name basis, and you know, starting to go to everybody's house and just hang out for barbecues and doing non-ham radio things together.
Making pizza.
Yeah, so, and cookies. Emily, oh, those cookies, man. But is that something that can be repeated? To an extent, yes. I mean, you know, there are a lot of communities within the amateur radio hobby that people feel connected to. You know, the contesters feel very tight with each other. The QRPers share a lot of information. The traffic handlers know each other fairly well. So we have that kind of experience within amateur radio in general. But there sure was something very special about creating a Facebook group for National Parks on the Air and getting everybody involved. You know, that was the first place that I would go when I'd wake up in the morning. I'd be awake for 10 minutes drinking my cup of coffee. I'm like, okay, what's going on here, guys? You know, who's going to be where today? You know, so that became an integral part of my daily existence for the last year, and it's weird not to be doing that now, you know. So, but the community, the Facebook page, we're not taking the Facebook page down anytime soon. So, and yeah, as people who are still following that page know, there's still a lot of activity that's going on with some of the other events. You know, the Worldwide Flora and Fauna event that's going on now it seems to be getting a lot of momentum. That's great. There are a lot of state parks on the air programs that are getting their sea legs at this point. The U.S. Islands program, the lighthouses, castles, all of that stuff. So if you miss going out and operating portable like you were doing for National Parks on the Air, there are a whole lot of activities that you can still be doing and enjoying that kind of operating. So don't let the fact that National Parks on the Air has stopped keep you from going out and putting other units on the air. I'm certain that there are things out there that you can activate, parks, castles, grids, whatever the case may be. If you want to talk to me about satellites, I'll talk your ear off about satellites. So, okay, we got another question over here. Let's see what we got. Yes, sir.
You did a great segue for my question. I would say that a lot of you went into withdrawal once January 1st, 2017 came around, but did you consider extending the National Parks on the Air into 2017? And I mentioned that I got an email from the National Park Foundation that says that 2017 is the 50th anniversary of the National Park Foundation, which is the fundraising part of. Did you consider piggybacking on that and continuing National Parks on the Air?
We did not consider piggybacking it on to 2017. I certainly had my fair share of conversations with the folks at the National Parks Foundation. The event was really designed around the centennial of the National Park Service. I don't foresee us doing this again anytime soon. Maybe in another 100 years we might try something like this. But one of the things that Norm and I have talked about is could we possibly make this a permanent award? Do we have the facilities to do that, kind of like DXCC or Worked All States? So we're talking about that. We're also talking about the possibility of maybe we could have a National Parks activity week centered around the anniversary in August. So these are things that we're talking about, and clearly based on the reaction that I just saw in the last 5 seconds, this would be something that you would enjoy. So we're talking about that, but we really didn't consider extending it past 2016. We wanted to keep it focused on the centennial.
And I just wanted to thank you and your staff at the ARRL for all you did ministering this event. It was awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to make sure. I want to make sure that Norm gets the credit that he deserves for doing all the work on the back end to get the IT folks coordinated and getting the certificates printed and dealing with the logbook of the world issues that cropped up as a result of this. Norm busted his butt, and I want to make sure that y'all know that.
Thank you.
We got a question here.
A couple of comments. First of all, not on social media until this thing started. I started looking at the Facebook page and I kept telling myself, I've got to get involved with this. So I called my daughter, who lives 3 hours away, and says, you got to come home and help me get set up on Facebook because I don't know how to do this stuff. and the people were fantastic on there. The other thing, every park I activated, I use a KX3 and CW only, and thanks for the trifold brochures. They were fantastic. Because I'd be sitting there operating, using earbuds, and someone would come over and say, what are you doing? And I unplugged the earbuds so they could hear the beeps. And I don't know how many times I heard the comment, people still do that? Thank you guys, it was a great event.
You're welcome.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Right, let's go over here. NK8Q.
Yeah. So
Busted call, no queue.
there was a few of those. I just have to thank you guys both for doing it as well. I had been doing hiking and I recently got started in Summits on the Air, but I was just going out and enjoying hiking and playing radio. So I got to combine the National Parks on the Air with a lifelong dream of when I graduated from college in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There was a place that some friends from college went after graduation. I was flat broke from paying for my own college, so I couldn't go there. But I finally got the opportunity to go back this year. It was ARRL National Park, which I'm advertising. It's the least visited national park, so I felt very compelled to go there. I found out it's the most revisited. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to get that opportunity as long as I'm married because it was a one-time hall pass. I combined the National Parks on the Air with Summits on the Air, which is another great thing. I've gotten a lot more active with that. There's 4 summits there. Only one of them had ever been activated before. My goal was to do all 4 of the summits. The clean sweep would have been nice, but it didn't quite work out. I got 3 of the 4. They were only 2 points each, so I got a total of 6 points. In central Pennsylvania, I get 6 points on 1 activation. But so it wasn't all about the points. It was just about doing it and being out there. It was difficult. I lost 50 pounds in training in 5 months or 6 months training for it. So I felt like 20 years younger afterwards. My health was so improved, and it was a life-changing event for me. So I thank you guys a lot for that.
Let me get...
Maybe we can get National Parks on the air to partner with, workout equipment or something. I don't know.
Let me give you a story.
Hold on. One more quick comment. I gave a talk at a local outfitter shop about the hike. I did mention a little bit about ham radio, but the alternate title for my hike, the actual title was Finding My True North. The alternate titles, one of them was How I Lost 50 Pounds Without Nutrisystem.
So,
Norm.
just to let you know, I've known Mark for about 20 years, right, Mark, about that? Okay. He was a member of the club. We lived at, literally not couple miles from each other. He's a big QRP operator. I'm a big QRO operator. He used to bust chops all the time, right? So anyway, National Parks on the air's on. I'm sorry, the W1AWs were on. I'm sorry, I'm mixing here, but I just want to let you know, Carter Craigie, who was also very active in national parks. In fact, he broke down in tears saying goodbye this morning, thanking us again for the national parks, okay? So, but Carter is a very warm guy, and he had a very warm way of promoting his QRP operation with his KX3. And because of Carter, and I guess I had an amends to this guy for busting his chops so much that I actually went on and got my QRP DXCC because of these guys. So look, and he's all happy.
So you mentioned going to Isle Royale. I would like to hear from you about your experiences and your increased awareness of the National Park Service as a result of this. One of the first operations that I did was at the Vicksburg battlefield in Mississippi when I was down there for the Mississippi State Convention in January. And I'd certainly known about Vicksburg. I like war history, but I'd never visited there. And driving through the park to get to my operating site that they told me I could go and set up was the experience as you kept going into the park and seeing all the monuments of the people that had fought that battle. I'll never forget that feeling. I'd never experienced anything like that. Being able to set up on the overlook right on the overlooking the Mississippi where the Confederate artillery was. But that was tremendous to be in the park and see how close the lines were on the fighting lines were between the Confederates and the Unions at that particular battle, and to think that it went on for as long as it did with such close range combat. I don't think I'll ever forget that experience. And, I went there ultimately because of amateur radio, and I learned a lot more than I ever would have learned without this program. Is anybody, I'm certain we all have stories like that. Ingrid, W7ISG, the highest female activator in the entire program and in the top 10 of all activators in National Parks on the Air.
Thank you so very much. First, I want to say thank you to the Chasers. Without you, I certainly couldn't have done it. The Chasers meant a lot to me, and every single one said thank you. Thank you very much for your activation. So I do want to take the time to say thank you very much. And second, being from the Southwest, we had some interesting challenges. One was the Hubble Trading Post. They required us to have a permit for that. So we spent like a half a day getting this permit. After that, after we did talk with the different Indian nations about getting it, they allowed us to come back to activate it again. Sometimes people would say, well, can you change over to this frequency or whatever, and we couldn't because we'd already outstayed our time. We were allotted time frames to be there. And then we spent about a full day running around and actually talking to one of the Indian lawyers from the Hohokam. Yes. we actually went to a lawyer to try to get a permit to go to the grounds to do an activation there. They had one person who did activate and was taken off from that, but we tried to get a permit, and they were going to go to their council, the Indian Council, to get this permit. But we actually tried to get 3 permits. We got 2, and were able to, during the centennial, to go to Tonto. So that was one of the permits that they required that we have. But they're on sacred ground, and they didn't want to have sacred ground broken. So what we were able to activate, people were so nice. They really wanted those parks. So it was the best time of my life, and the most activations, most QSOs that I had made, and I had just gotten my general license in November. So before the national park started. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
How many people recently received Ingrid's QSL card? That's a nice QSL card.
I promise you're going to get one. I just got my cards. I just got them. So
They're worth the wait. So, anybody else have an experience about interacting with the National Park Service? Hopefully a good one.
Guy, KC5GOI. Until we did the National Parks on the Air thing, I probably never really thought about going to parks outside with family vacations, but the big push that I did was back in October, where I went to Las Vegas, New Mexico, and I got some hard times for not hitting Los Alamos. I don't know how I missed it. I just did, but I got all the outside perimeter ones. These are parks that I probably never would have gone to, and now I'm already talking to my wife about when we go on vacation, I want to go to places like Bandelier and take them. We're going to be going through on vacation later this year. We're coming back. I'm taking the kids to Kaplan and Pikes Peak. So these are things that I've never been at before, and I was fortunate to be in between Chickasaw and Waco Woolly Mammoth, and they were 2-hour drives for me. Those were my closest parks. But I did a lot of Chickasaw, and my New Mexico trip was a weekend thing from Dallas out there, 3 days. We did 1,500 contacts in between those 5 parks. So we had a blast.
Yeah, it was always interesting to see some of the interactions that were had with activators at some of the parks, and the way that amateur radio got presented at some of these places was extremely interesting and unique. I think probably the highlight of all of this was at Lewis and Clark National Monument up in Washington. We actually had an ARRL QSO conducted during a National Parks on the Air activation. So they brought in a bunch of kids for a STEM activity at Lewis and Clark National Monument, and they got to talk to an astronaut on the space station for a little bit during an NPOTA activation and an ARRL contact combined. So that certainly helped in the PR department. So and the thing about that was they reached out to us, right?
Yeah, and the cool thing too, when I was out there for a convention, I went in to go ask permission to operate, and I found this like really isolated picnic area, and as soon as I walked in, that's all they talked about was the satellite that was coming up. Oh, yeah, we're going to have the ham radio and the satellite thing. And then even the groundskeepers, see people out there watering plants. They're like, oh, what are you doing, ham radio? Oh, we're going to have the satellite thing coming up in a couple of months, blah, blah. So they were geared up for it. Yeah, they were really psyched.
We're kind of running out of time. We'll go here. Hi.
Just wanted to say I had a blast doing all this, and I appreciate everybody's efforts. Like was said, we had a lot of cool moments, but 2 that stood out to us was the parks that asked us to come back. Yeah. That just was the thrill for us, and so they actually asked us to come back again this year for the Halloween. That was just a fun moment. The park ranger at the Lincoln Home in Springfield, Illinois, so if anybody wants to come by and help, you're welcome this year. Pat actually had an NPOTA t-shirt on with a Dracula cape, and I painted his face. That was just a very fun moment. What they have is about 2,000 kids and maybe 4,000 people in the Lincoln Home area trick-or-treating at the old antique Civil War homes, including the Lincoln Home with they had Abraham Lincoln and Mary Lincoln, you know, dressed up and everything. Everybody in period outfits. The house is all decorated, and they gave us an empty lot next to one of the old homes. We set up our station, and when we got some of the operators actually helped us by being available at that time, because it's like, you know, in the early evening, and folks were available for Pat to make contact with. And so we got, their goal was, the ranger wanted to get those kids on the air, the kids with the costumes and everything, and that was just a blast to tie in event that they had with an event that we had. So that was really, really nice.
So you had a bunch of ghost operators then, did you? Okay.
By the way, she was W9MAP. I'm in 90QT. And yeah, the house right next to the field where we were at had an old intercom system built into the house. Apparently it still had power to it, but no one ever used it, so they didn't know that it was still on. While single sideband was coming through there, causing some pretty strange noises for some of the volunteers that were doing ghost stuff inside of that house. So we heard about that. That was kind of fun.
Only on Halloween, right? All right.
Paul's got. Paul, yeah.
Okay. Hang on, Kent. We'll get to you in just a second.
Hey, I'm W8TA, I'm Tom. My wife, Julie, K8VOX, got her general as a result of National Parks on the Air. She said, what do I have to do? I said, get general. She did. Okay. She crushed it. I just want to say to everyone the words that became the most addictive words at ham radio to me. Thanks for the new one.
Yeah. All right, get over here to Kent. Pardon me here just a second.
Thanks, Sean. Hi, I'm Kent Olson, KA0LDG, and I'm from the rare DX state of North Dakota. But having said that, first I want to publicly thank Sean and Norm for the stuff they did. Oh, by the way, I'm on the board of directors, and myself and my vice director were, I think, the only ones of the directors that activated and chased and stuff like that. But anyway, thanks for you gentlemen who'd ran this thing. This was a thing, like Norm mentioned, the board had to choose what's the highest in IT, priorities and get moved up and stuff like that. And I'm glad that we made that decision to make this what it was. Because as we well know, amateur radio is one of those things that, I sit in a room with a whole bunch of other guys and a bunch of DXers, a bunch of contesters, and this is kind of a contest kind of ring to it, but they're all like, well, but I'm here to tell you, my experience alone, I chased 384 confirmed, I activated 5 times, so I was on the air as much as I could, as much as my full-time job and family and stuff would allow, but it was great. And a tear was shed on the, 00Z on the 31st of January when it ended, as I'm sure all of you did. But one of my things that I'm going to try to do is push more activities such as this, because it involves not only us folks who have licenses for quite a few years, but all the young people. And the young people are our future in this hobby. National Parks in this situation was a huge benefit. So things such as this that you guys hatched over a couple of beers or whatever is just outstanding, and I'm in full support, and you'll continue to get my full support. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken.
This was the most famous pizza in all of amateur radio.
Yeah, really.
Okay, we only got a few minutes left.
Paul has one
Okay,
right there.
Paul. One moment.
I'd like to thank everybody that contributed to my score as a QRP operator. What I liked was when we also chased, when the stations would call, they would call for park to parks, then they'd call for QRP and portables, and then they'd go through the numbers. That really helped us 1 and 2 and 3 waters, because if they listen. And I actually had people relay me, not for the credit, but to let the other operator know there's a QRP call in it, and I got it. When you call in by the numbers, the thing that I found was frustrating, that they would call 4 or 5 of the numbers and then go to some other mode. And after you wait 20 minutes and you're the next number, and then they go to QRP or something, it's frustrating. Is there anything going on for August 21st? Because Sweetwater, Tennessee is one of the 733 cities that's in the path of the eclipse. Is there something going on?
There's a whole organization that is working on amateur radio propagation studies during the solar eclipse. If you go to HAMSCI, HAMSCI.org, they have an entire program set up of how they're going to be studying the effects of the eclipse's effects on the ionosphere during that. So HAMSCI.org, I encourage you all to go there and learn how you can participate in this propagation study. We have a couple of minutes left. I wanted to open up one more. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, they have a booth in our expo over here, Hamsci, and also there's stickers and pins over there because
we got some NPOTA swag. Be sure to get some on your way out. But in the time that we have left, just a couple of minutes, I'd like to hear from you. What could we do better? You know, what was something during NPOTA that you thought could use a little improvement? Anything? Because if you thought it was a perfect event, that's great.
This is probably an IT thing, and it's not, just would be nice. It's obviously not necessary. It would kind of be nice if on the leaderboard, it said, when your park, it would say whose call sign you worked at that park.
Okay, that's good. Any other feedback? Okay. Mary.
I'd probably like to see if we can split up the modes. I think, the CW and, just the reporting of it, if there's some possibility for that.
Right. No, we acknowledge that we throttled it back a little too far from the Centennial QSO party, and in retrospect, I wish we had done it that you could work each unit based on mode, FOD, CW, and digital. So, yeah, we throttled it back a little too much, and I think we're going to keep that in mind with future events that we have here. Band too? Think so? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
We got time for one more comment.
How long are the statistics going to stay up on the not LTW on the National Parks page from the league?
How long is the leaderboard page going to stay up?
We have no intent to close it down anytime soon.
All right. There we go. One last thing.
I got my certificate. Now, I saw something about the honor roll. Is there a certificate for the honor roll, or
If you qualified when you ordered your certificate, they were all checked. So if you did not qualify for the honor roll, you weren't able to order it. So, okay? Hey, listen, grab some cookies.
Grab some cookies. We got some stickers.
Grab some
and
pins.
again,
nothing's going home with me.
Thank you all for a great year of amateur radio.
All right, thank you.
Hey, stick around. Let's get a group photo while we're all here. And I promise I'll be in this one. And so will Norm.